So I'm really enjoying using Claude Code for our marketing at GitLaw. And I thought I'd show a little bit about how I'm using it and why it's so helpful. So first of all, the video transcript for this little recording here, I asked Claude to help me with so you can see it right here on the screen. But the way I've got it working is I'm using Claude Code inside something called VS Code, which essentially is just like a viewer for files, and it allows me to integrate Claude Code into my files and see them side by side. Now, what you'll see here on the left is this is a GitHub repository. It's markdown files. These are basically just like basically text files. Originally, this architecture was all to do with our specs for GitLaw. So all of the specs, how we write specs, the concepts of how GitLaw works, the different parts of our system, how the architecture works, how the LLM works, the release process that we have. All of that is basically defined in specs that we have, and we follow what's called spec-driven development. So we write specs in Markdown in one place. The dev team can see it, the product team sees it, design team sees it, everyone has it there. And that's then also used when we actually write code. They start with those specs. Those specs can be given as context to the LLM to help write code. But for marketing, I now added a marketing folder to this spec folder. And what we do, within this, I've added things like user research, some of the user interviews we've done, some of the competition that we think about, the strategy, target market, proposition, commercial model that we have, the visual guidelines, the tone of voice, my personal tone of voice, messaging. So basically all of these different bits of like context that were previously in Google Docs, in presentations, I just gave them all to Claude and said, hey, turn these into context that I can then use in my repository. And it created these markdown files. Obviously, I then reviewed them. What it then was able to do, it's able to write articles, blog posts. What I asked it to do is I asked it to grab all the FAQ documents that we have on Webflow. There's an automatic integration there. So I was able to go and have it basically download them all automatically straight from our Webflow website via this Webflow API and the Webflow CMS, pull them all in there. So all this context now exists inside this repository, which is on GitHub, shared with the whole team, but then is also mirrored onto my machine locally in my documents folder and onto other team members' folders as well. So what I'm then able to do is make what Claude Code does. It's able to work with files on your machine. And we are able to write skills. Skills are basically just like instructions for Claude for what it should do in certain situations. So if you open my Claude folder here, go into skills, you can see some of the different skills we have. Here's one in marketing that I created recently. Depending on what I ask it to do, I've given it different context. So I've said like, for new content, make sure you read our ICP and pain points, so ideal customer profile. Check for UPL compliance, make sure we're not breaking any laws or rules in the legal space. Have a look at these different folders for different content. This is how our brand voice. This is our voice. You can kind of like see kind of the stuff we have in this skill, right? And basically, we have it behave. It's quite a long document. You can see in here for different types of requests, it behaves differently. It behaves differently for a LinkedIn post request, to a email, to an article, press release. It behaves differently if I ask it to do something for me, for tone of voice versus the company tone of voice. And this is all based on kind of our main documents, right? So this all becomes basically context for Claude to use when I want to generate, ask it to do stuff for me. So a couple of examples of what I've asked it to do recently. And you can basically open as many of these like Claude tabs, sessions simultaneously and ask it to do stuff, and it will work with all the different documents. So the first one was obviously, I said to it, I want to write a LinkedIn post about how great Claude Code is, right? So you can see what it did here is it checks my personal style. It read this style here. It looked at the existing LinkedIn post that I had done. So it's basically got access to my archive of LinkedIn posts, so it can figure out like what works, what doesn't work. And then it wrote this LinkedIn post. I'm going to edit it probably quite heavily, to be honest, but like it's at least like a really good starting point. And then what I'll do when I've finished, and you'll be able to see in the LinkedIn post that I've posted for this, which I haven't written yet myself, you can see that like you'll be able to see there's a difference. And what I'll ask, once I've finished it, I'll paste it back in again and say, this is what I went with. Update the skill, update your context to, in the future, write more like my style and less like what you did. So each time I'm basically using the content, I'm trying to train it to be better at what it's doing. So I think let me show you some other examples. So another example today was UTM trackers, right? So we have UTM. UTM trackers is like a tracking document that allows me, it's a track. UTMs are trackers where you can append certain information in the URL, and it will show you in your analytics package where users came from, what content drove user growth. So we used to have this in an Excel spreadsheet. I saw it in a Slack thread today. People were saying like, oh, where's the UTM Excel spreadsheet? And I literally just downloaded it as CSV, gave it to Claude and said, take this UTM tracker, add it to the marketing folder, and then I asked it to update our skills so that every time it creates new links in the future, I want them to make sure that it uses our UTM pattern. So it's automatically kind of with UTM, the right UTM tags, right? It's really, really simple, but like when I come across these like little bits of context that sort of sit around our company, usually in Notion or in Drive, I'm just giving it to Claude each time and saying, hey, add it to our context so that in the future, the content that it creates is aligned with the latest that we have. So what I did this morning was I said to it, go through my specs that I have, so all the specs are in here, right? Look through the specs and suggest missing FAQ documents that we have on our website. So for each, ask me questions that you need in order to write a great FAQ article. So it went around, it started looking at all the different specs here. It started, then it basically came out with it looked at all the different FAQ documents that we had already written, which are all in here. And it's then basically, it's given me 10 suggested ones that it thinks I should write based on the stuff that's missing that we're not currently covered in the FAQ documents. So this is the one I wrote here. I answered a few questions for it. So it asked a few questions around it. I gave it a little bit of additional information about it. It then went ahead and wrote it with a few additional questions. I answered those questions, and it's now basically written this document. And I'm going to read this in a minute, but you can see like it looks reasonable on my first read. I think it looks basically right. And it's now ready to go into Webflow. So what I could do is I can ask it directly in Claude here, save this as a draft in my Webflow CMS. And what it should do, it'll hopefully use the MCP to save directly in Webflow. And now you can see here it's actually published you can see it initially went through a few different steps here of trying to find out what to do. It needed an extra field, didn't have, it figured that out, and it's now published it in the how-to as draft but not live. Now, it took a few minutes to do that. It wasn't immediate. I cut the video a little bit because it took too long. But the reality is, I can just create a whole bunch of new tabs open here, right? So I can say, great, publish this, open a new tab, carry on with a different task, I can come back to it and it will do it later. It's like super productive if you're trying to update you've just launched a feature, or you've got a few different features, or you're updating something in your platform, you want to update all the knowledge base articles. Instead of going out to a writer and saying, hey, can you please go through and update all these, or doing it yourself, it might take 2 or 3 hours. It can literally take 5-10 minutes to ask Claude to do it, review the content, and then ship. So another example would be, we have an upcoming release. So we've got website landing pages over here. These are the landing pages and the features that we have. Now, I know there's a spelling mistake there with landing page. It's great, Claude, because you don't have to be perfect. It'll figure out what I actually meant. So I wonder whether it'll find the right, it's going to look for the feature spec. Great. It's going to check our tone of voice. It's going to look at the API and integrations spec. Great. And it's now going to create a landing page following our tone of voice, following the kind of format our other landing pages take. I hope. Let's see what it creates. There we go. Yes, you can write that. Good. It's found the right folder. It's put it in the website. It's put it into the landing pages. It has it's showing it a draft. It's going to go live on Dash integrations. That makes sense to me. Makes sense. We're not going to integrate it with Make and other platforms. So it's slightly, what I could do here is I can actually iterate with it and just say, we're only integrating Zapier, not Make, and we're only, but we have a public API where you can integrate it wherever you want. So I'm going to and to be fair, our spec says that it'll be integrated into Make as well. So we should actually update the spec. So what I can ask here is update, what's it? Yeah, that makes sense. So it's showing me side by side, it's showing me what is actually changing, which I think is awesome, right? So it's not like the first time it generates a contract, or the first time it generates a document, it's like brand new, but then it actually shows you side by side what it's changing. Now I'm going to go pretty fast with this stuff because I don't want to spend ages on this video going through. I'm just going to say, yes, you can make this edit, that's fine. And I will then go and do a manual review of it a bit more carefully later. But the fact that it's showing me changes, going through, super, super helpful. I also wanted to update the original spec. That's fine. Yeah. I'm just going to say yes to all of these because it's going to take too long otherwise to go through all these. So you can see obviously you want to read these things. It takes a bit longer than on this video because otherwise this video would be way too long. But it's so fast and so helpful. So now, I'm in the marketing folder, working on a marketing task. I realize that our spec still says we're going to integrate with Make at the same time. And I'm like, actually, we should update that. So I'm going to ask it to go back and edit it. So now it's looking at the, let's have a look at what it's actually editing. It's now going into, it wants to edit the integrations, public API. Yep. And it's basically saying that it's getting rid of Make, N8N, and Pipe Dream. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine as well. That's fine. Perfect. So basically it's now got updated the specs as well. Now, why does it matter? Having updated specs, this is all the context that it can use that to update obviously our landing page. It can use that to update our FAQ page. So now let's go back to the FAQs. I should also be updating my FAQs. Update, write an FAQ article about how the public API and Zapier integrations work. I probably also want to create a blog post maybe, and I probably want to also update a press release, I think, because at the same time I'm going to want, I can see we have one here that I drafted probably a few days ago. I probably want to be able to take that, edit that, because I can see it says N8N and pipe dream. So from the press release, remove N8N, remove non-Zapier integrations, and also write a blog post. And anything else I need? Yeah, social media post. Yep. So basically I can start to add all of these up, right? I can start to basically get, and it will just sit there in the background. It'll work. I can either give it full permission to do everything automatically. So I could just say, allow all edits for this session. But if I do that, then it's not going to trigger me to say, hey, can I make this change? Hey, can I make this change? And most of the time, if it's existing content or existing pages, I do still want to have that control and make sure that it's not just like going off and doing all its stuff in an automated way. Usually when I'm not recording a video, right, I will spend a lot more time actually checking that the work that it's doing is right. And I'll usually actually write some stuff myself in there too. I won't just accept its changes, because it's not like 100% there, but it is like, I would say 90% of the way there. And then the real hack again is to, when it gets things wrong, when you want to update the tone of voice isn't right, or it's too verbose, or it's not, gets things wrong, tell it that it's got it wrong, tell it to update its context or to update its skill, and then next time it doesn't make the same mistake again. And then obviously, right at the beginning of this video, I shared the team is using this, right, this repository. So these are markdown files on my computer, but they are also markdown files synced with everybody else's computers, right? So they all have the same files as I do. So everyone else shares this context too. So because you've got everybody basically improving the context the whole time and writing all this content in one place, you end up with sort of shared team knowledge that everyone's Claude Code, AI Copilot is able to basically work with, and it feels really productive. It's also super fun. I think you're able to build content, specs, marketing materials, sales materials way faster than you could do before.